Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. I am your host, Harrison Graham, and hey, give me a follow on Twitter, @HGrahamNFL, for more Bears news and rumors over there. But we got some stuff to get into on today's show, and hey, why wouldn't we start out with more around Justin Fields on today's show? ESPN's Bill Barnwell, he went ahead and wrote an article and predicted, hey, when will all the rookie quarterbacks make their initial debuts? Obviously, first-round picks, by the way. He didn't focus on Kellen Mond or anyone like that. No more Kellen Mond talk on this show. Justin Fields, will he start in Week 4? That's what Bill Barnwell says. I'm going to give this one to Smokin' Jays. Week 4 feels like a possible starting point for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Week 1 is at the Rams. I don't think they're going to light them into the fire right away. And Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace have been pretty consistent that Andy Dalton will be this team's starting quarterback in Week 1. But Week 4 against a team like Detroit, you get them at home. The Lions are rebuilding. That defense isn't going to be very good. Have 3 or 4 weeks to sit behind Andy Dalton after a long offseason as well. I actually think Week 4 makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm only going to give it to Smokin' Jays because really we're all just guessing, right? Until Matt Nagy actually says something or makes a move saying, hey, this is our timeline of when we plan to start Justin Fields, it's kind of hard to say, oh, it's 4 Smokin' Jays, bear down, it's happening, because we just really don't know until that time actually gets here. But I do think Week 4 makes sense, and here's why. Number one, I don't want to have him running from Aaron Donald in his first start of his career on the road in Sunday Night Football. Let Andy Dalton get knocked around a little bit. Then you got the Bengals in Week 2. Andy Dalton against his former team. That's a game you should win at home. Week 3 at the Browns, very possible you start 1-2. And then maybe, hey, Detroit at home makes a lot of sense because, A, that for the reasons we already discussed, that's a team that's going to struggle this year. And B, the next game against the Raiders as well in Week 5, that's back-to-back games there, Detroit and Las Vegas in Week 4 and Week 5, where you can say, okay, these are 2 of the lesser defenses in the NFL. Let's groom Justin Fields, get him into the season here before things really ramp up with the Packers at the Bucs, 49ers, Steelers on Monday Night Football. The schedule really, really ramps up in Week 6 and beyond. So if you're going to do it before the schedule really heats up, Week 4 makes sense because you get him against 2 bad defenses in Detroit and Las Vegas. Those are going to be more than likely 2 of the bottom 10 defenses in the National Football League this year. You guys saw Week 6 through 9. Those are all going to be tough games against quality opponents. Obviously, the second half of the schedule, maybe things go really well with Andy Dalton, and you wait until after the bye week. Well, you got Baltimore after the bye week. They always have a good defense. At Detroit in Week 12 on Thanksgiving, maybe that's a possibility, but that'll be a short week. With that being a Thursday game, you got Arizona Week 13, and then I just assume at this point Justin Fields has taken over as the starter well before Week 14 and at the end of the schedule. If he hasn't, one of 2 things has happened. 1, Andy Dalton has played really well and you're in contention, or 2, I guess 3 things. 2, Justin Fields suffers some kind of injury. We don't want that to happen. Or 3, he's just not developing that well, and that's not a very good sign. So I certainly think he will be the starter well before this time. You predict it for me. What week will Justin Fields make his very first start? And we're not talking about the preseason, regular season. What week will Justin Fields make his NFL debut? Get your votes in on this one. Week 4, Week 5, that sounds pretty good to me. Let Dalton start for a few games and then go ahead and turn to Justin Fields. But let us know what you guys think. When will Justin Fields make his first start? Did want to give you guys a fresh reminder of the Smokin' Jay rumor meter. It's been a little bit since we've showed you guys this. 0 Smokin' Jays means fake news. It's not real. It's not going to happen. There's no chance of it happening. 1 Smokin' Jay. It's barely true. Like that run on words right there. Barely true. Could happen, but it's pretty unlikely. 2 Smokin' Jays. People are talking. It's 50-50. It's a possibility. It's out there. Kind of like Fields taking over in Week 4. It could happen, but we don't really know. Week 3 Smokin' Jays means it's pretty likely. Can't say with absolute certainty, but there's a really good chance that it does happen. And then 4 Smokin' Jays. Bear down, it is going to happen. There is just about 0 doubt at the end of the day that that will happen. Chicago Bears Now is sponsored by the Newsbreak app. And hey, newspapers are a thing of the past because they're all clunky. You're trying to lift them up. Oh, it rained last night, so it got a little bit wet, so I can't read all the stories. Just download the Newsbreak app and get all your local news at chatsports.com/BearsNB. All your news stories from your favorite publications, they're aggregated onto one feed on your phone. You can keep up with local news and weather, politics, pop culture, food reviews, new restaurants opening in your neighborhood, sports content, both written and video, plus videos from us here at Chicago Bears Now. Go to Newsbreak at chatsports.com/BearsNB. When you use that link, it really supports the show. Download the app today. That link will be in the comments. It'll be in the description. It's in the live chat for those of you watching live. chatsports.com/BearsNB. Let's talk Anthony Miller and really the wide receiver position as a whole, because is there going to be heavy competition? Yeah, you better believe it. For Smokin' Jays bear down, the competition is going to be hot and heavy after Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney. I think those are the only two guys on the Bears wide receiver depth chart that are locks to make the roster. After that, it's open season. See what happens this offseason and in the preseason. And Mike Fury, the Bears wide receiver coach, he's been very blunt when it comes to Anthony Miller and the wide receiver position as a whole. Look at what he said just a few days ago. Now, it's not going to be a need base. We don't need you. We've got guys who are going to produce. So what is he saying there? Like, hey, just because we drafted you in the second round a couple of years ago doesn't mean you're a lock to make this team. And I like this attitude. Maybe that was a little, over the top harsh from the Bears wide receiver coach to say that publicly, but you know what? You need competition and accountability. Anthony Miller has to be a more consistent player if he's going to be on this football team. And to his credit, he tweeted this out. What's life without a little competition? With the smiling emoji. Hey, I like this attitude from Miller. Mike Fury, to his credit, also said that Miller has had a good attitude and has matured a lot this offseason. Now, actions speak louder than words, but that's certainly a good sign as well. Last year was rookie deal. If he's going to be on this team, it's now or never if he wants to have a future in Chicago. Now, like I said, you look at the depth chart. A-Rob, Mooney, those guys are locks. They're going to make this football team. There's no doubt. After that, though, for the final 3 or 4 spots, we'll see if they carry 5 or 6 receivers. That's the amount that most NFL teams carry. It won't be less than 5, and the most would be 7, but I think it'll be 5 or 6. Anthony Miller, Damiere Byrd, Marquise Goodwin, Daz Newsome, Riley Ridley, Javon Wims. All those guys are going to be vying for roster spots, and I don't think any of them are locks after Mooney and A-Rob. I really, really don't. Now, Fury did point out that Marquise Goodwin has emerged as a vocal leader in this locker room. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to make the team. Maybe his value is more in the offseason and in training camp as these young guys improve as players. The Anthony Millers, the Daz Newsomes of the world, and maybe the Riley Ridleys and Javon Wims. But I think it's notable for him to point out Marquise Goodwin specifically, because that might mean he has a chance at making the roster over a guy like Anthony Miller, despite being older. I think that could be a possibility. So the good news is, if Miller makes this team, he will have earned it, and that will have meant that he's had a strong camp, that he's had a strong preseason, and he has performed at the level that is expected. I'm excited to see this competition play out. I think the Bears need more blood on offense in terms of just, hey, you got to hold yourself accountable. You got to earn your spot on this team. There's fresh energy now with Justin Fields being in the fold. I like this a lot from Chicago and Mike Fury specifically. What you think? Will Anthony Miller be a Chicago Bear in Week 1? Will he be on this roster by the time roster cuts are made and by the time they take the field on Sunday Night Football against the LA Rams? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Get your votes in. Will Anthony Miller be a Chicago Bear in Week 1? Once Week 1 gets here, we're going to do a watch party. I know that's 4 months away, but that's one of many reasons to subscribe to Chicago Bears Now. You see the link on screen down below, youtube.com/Bears Now. We'll continue to have the latest news, rumors, weekly live shows on Tuesdays, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time. We'll do watch parties during the regular season. Dare I say, for almost every game this year. I think we did about half the games last year. The way we're growing, we'll probably do one every single week this year. youtube.com/Bears Now. This is the fastest growing Bears channel on YouTube. Let's keep that momentum going. Tell a friend and hit that sub button if you haven't already. Oh, let's talk a little social media beef. Jalen Ramsey barking back at Chicago Bears fans. We've reached the trolling part of the offseason. Now, Bears fans have been trolling Ramsey on the internet and took it to a whole new level on Wikipedia. You see the last line in that little paragraph here? Darnell Mooney has one child. His name is Jalen Ramsey. So where is this coming from? So Darnell Mooney torched Jalen Ramsey on a double move last year against the Rams. in classic Nick Foles fashion, he overthrew him. Now he was pressured a bit, but still, he was wide open. Would have been an easy 75-yard touchdown. And to say the least, Jalen Ramsey, he is not very happy. He's had enough, and he went to Instagram and posted this on his story. Can't wait until week 1 so all these lame-ass Bears fans can STFU, you could fill in the blanks here, shut the bleep up, about their number 2 wide receiver. It's funny because they know better, too. You gotta love the trash talk of professional sports, right? Social media, a lot of it's good, a lot of it's bad. I love the trash talk side of it, though. It's fun. Why is Jalen Ramsey getting fed up with the fan base talking about Darnell Mooney torching him a year ago in a game that the Bears lost anyway? I don't know, but the fact that he's responding is great for content. It's great to talk about. It's a lot of fun, and it's even better that these two teams are happening to be playing in week 1. It's absolutely fantastic. So let's go in the crystal ball. Let's look ahead 4 months from now. Who is going to win this week 1 matchup in prime time on Sunday Night Football? Type B for the Chicago Bears. Type R for the LA Rams. I can't wait. You know Jalen Ramsey is going to be running his mouth. It's going to be a lot of fun. Go ahead and predict it for us. Let's get into some Chicago Bears news here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. The offseason continues to roll along. Rookie minicamp was over this past weekend, and now voluntary workouts have begun in which veterans can start to show up to the building and work out and etc. And the report is that roughly 70 players were in attendance. That's a good sign. 90-man roster in the offseason, so that's about 80% showing up there. That's pretty good. And then Jeff Dickerson of ESPN.com said the offense had nearly perfect attendance. These are good signs, right? Because the Bears were one of the teams that actually released a statement with the NFLPA that they wanted to be virtual for voluntary workouts. Well, turns out they're actually showing up in bunches, which I think is good, right? Like, look, you can work out at your home gym. A lot of these guys, especially the higher paid guys, can get their workouts done. You can do the classroom work over Zoom. I get all that, but there's something about building that camaraderie in the offseason of getting there in person, dabbing up your boys, be like, hey, man, let's chase it this year. Let's go after the NFC North. That all starts in April, May, June, July, during this offseason stuff. So I'm a big fan of these guys showing up and being there in person. The Bears schedule ahead, if you will, as we progress through the offseason. They canceled their first set of OTAs. Matt Nagy decided to give them the weekend of May 25th through the 27th off, so no workouts that weekend. But then you got back-to-back weekends there, June 1st through 3rd through the 7th through 10th. And then mandatory minicamp gets going in mid-June, and then training camp. That has not been announced yet. Usually that'll take place starting in July. So once we get that information, we will pass that along to you. But things are slowly starting to ramp up as veterans start to get back into the building. And then obviously after all of that stuff, you got the preseason. We haven't really talked about the preseason here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. Only 3 games this year. Because of the extra 17th game in the regular season, so 3 preseason games. August 14th against the Dolphins, August 21st against the Bills, and then on the road against the Tennessee Titans on August 28th before the season ramps up in the second weekend in September. It's going to be a fun offseason. Before we know it, preseason, regular season, all that stuff is going to be here. And if you can't tell, I'm fired up. The energy is palpable around this team after drafting Justin Fields. If you're as fired up as I am, type me down in the comments. Just type it once, twice, 3 times. If you're really fired up, type it more than once. Let us know how pumped up you are for the upcoming season. Did want to hit on this news as well, just real quickly. Austin Calitro, the linebacker, he has been signed by Chicago. Played with Denver last year. He's kind of like a special teams backup type of guy, fringe roster spot. Number 4 linebacker type. Nothing really to say here. He's not going to take snaps from a Roquan Smith or something like that, or a Danny Trevathan, but a depth piece. He could be your number 4 linebacker and play some special teams. In a corresponding move, Chicago has released Reggie Davis, who spent last season on the practice squad. So he is now off the roster. Calitro is now in a roster move here. You're seeing a lot of, minor roster moves being made as teams manipulate their 90-man roster. Chicago also signed Chris Lacey, the receiver, the other day. A lot of moving parts. Just want to keep you guys up to date on the latest news here on Bears Now. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at HGramNFL. That's at HGramNFL. And we'll get some shout-outs throughout the show. I'll go ahead and see if any of you guys have followed me yet. I'll pull up my phone here, pull up my Twitter feed, and got a couple here. Ed Littner has followed me. Paul Guglielmino has followed me. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that right. We'll do shout-outs throughout the show, so if you want one, go ahead and follow me at HGramNFL. It's in the community tab, the live chat right now. You can just click on that link and hit that follow button. You can keep up with more Bears and NFL news, notes, NBA. I do it all on Twitter, so give me a follow, and you can also slide in my DMs. We'll have some fun right there as well.